Hi, this is Bob Samuels. Welcome to the first 2025 Can with Bob ABM Leaders Group podcast. Today, we're going to have a spirited discussion with NVIDIA's Ari Capogeannis, a leading voice in artificial intelligence and account-based marketing. We'll be exploring how AI is changing the game for B2B marketers, from ABM to data-driven decision-making. As a reminder, this is not just a one-way conversation. We'll be taking your questions and your thoughts throughout the show. So feel free to use the chat function and share your perspective and insights. Ari, please take a moment to give an intro about your background and on ABM and AI. Also, a fun fact about you that one would not know from viewing your LinkedIn profile. And if you can say your name just so everybody has the real pronunciation, I try.
Thanks, Bob. I'm Ari, artist dominus Capogeannis. I wasn't going to hold Bob to that. I head up revenue marketing here at NVIDIA. Came into NVIDIA from Cumulus Networks, where we were acquired in June of 2020. Feels like 10 years ago at this point. And we've built out this team primarily for a holistic view of the account relationship with us for our very many stakeholders. Something not on LinkedIn. Probably I've lost the ability to do most of my hobbies thanks to my two wonderful, beautiful little kids, two boys, 6 and 8 years old. So I think I spend most of my time pontificating about getting the band back together, starting that microbrewery business. But I think I still have a number of years to wait until that time permits.
Wow, those are fun hobbies. My goodness. All right. Well, thank you. So I'd like to do is split this podcast up into segments. We'll start with polls. If everybody can give their input. First poll's on ABM. So
Oh, I'm not allowed to vote.
what are your biggest challenges? So can everybody see it? There we go. So Ari, tell me a bit about ABM. What's ABM looking like for you and your team?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you have a very exciting year ahead of you with these conversations. ABM's weird, right? It's this topic that marketers consistently try and reinvent for well over a quarter century at this point, maybe 30 years for people who remember one-to-one enterprise marketing. And I've said before, kind of like Sir Edmund Hillary climbing Mount Everest, gets the tech stack right, it's got all the money ready to go. I'm going to climb that mountain and I'm going to take my Sherpa with me, who's probably been doing it, Tenzin Norgay, I think, for years. And it causes this constant rift between marketing, touting reinventing ABM, and sellers who are ABS, account-based selling, from their chemical makeup. And every single time there's some new innovation, whether it's intent data, account engagement, even AI, it's like we try and go back to reinventing ABM. Whereas everything should essentially be account-based to some degree in execution. I think at one point in time, the issue probably back in the one-to-one enterprise day was, okay, you limited on resources, you don't have the technology that we have today. So how are you going to focus for the biggest bang of the buck? I'm going to go after that 20%, the whales, put all my eggs in this basket, do all my legwork with the limited resources I have for these two accounts. With the technology that we have now, we have the ability to scale and hit everything or as much as possible within an ICP at an account relevant delivery mechanism. So there are degrees to what ABM is. Are you doing white glove treatment for a door opener for one particular account, or are you just doing smart marketing? And how are we getting smarter now that we have the technology and the AI behind it this year moving forward?
Excellent. So you mentioned a white glove treatment. What exactly does that look like?
Yeah, for us, it's interesting. If you took a wide swath of execution amongst marketers, whether they're driving engagement for something that's hopefully a future revenue earner within, say, an average of 2 to 4 years, once you get past the early adopters and get it mainstream. As they do all that, there are natural overflow in these large B2B enterprise orgs that have multiple buying centers that are still buying bread and butter from, say, other SKUs or other offerings. So even from the marketing campaign standpoint, when we're looking at ROI and account engagement, if I identify out of 3,000 accounts, 20 in a given time period that have 75% of the roles engaging that we define internally as a buying center, I want to fast track engagement for those. So we have a buying center operations movement towards those. And then for the ones that actually align with current sales conversations or current things that sales is trying to deliver on a one-to-one basis, that's where the white glove really comes into play. That's where we force that omni-channel experience and, red carpet, throw the warm blanket on the VIPs, the very important top officers for those sellers and those accounts. It's very interesting, talking to a seller. They have an existing contact relationship in a very, very large organization. Many of them are a bit more old school and don't want you touching their account. But somehow that one contact in that account is going to know what all the mini buying centers within that organization globally are doing and want. Probably not the case. So White Glove leverages the data to push forward to either enable that seller for the things they know they need right now, or make them aware of the needs that that account has and prep them to actually dive into that properly.
Very good. Thank you for that. So we've got some full answers, and let me just share the results with you. And how does that look to you? So the budget doesn't seem to be a big problem. Measuring results is probably the biggest, and then the integration with sales and marketing or aligning them.
Yeah, it's interesting. The bottom two are ever present, no matter what technology phase we've been in, right? I think the second from bottom is where we're starting to hit a sweet spot with AI and the technologies that we have in play now.
So the measuring success.
Yeah, I think marketers drown themselves in MTA, multi-touch attribution, which, influence reporting, multi-touch. We got to show the organization that we're doing something, one, for budget approval, two, just to feel good about ourselves as marketers. The account, let's say you've got 15 people around a water cooler across 4 personas, and you're a decent organization with a developer community, marketing programs, sales has their own programs, partner channel, it goes on and on and on. What's the value in identifying the engagement of one individual from a banner ad that somewhat correlates with an opportunity closed over here with another individual? Should that be counted as influence reporting? And should that be something that finance takes to heart as to whether their budget's working or not? It's very, very hard to do with the technologies that we've had to date. With the newer up-and-comer applications of AI towards big data, we start getting into this realm of causality and correlations analysis, which for me is probably the most exciting thing on deck right now in identifying the effectiveness of these campaigns.
So causality, that's getting into the measuring success, figuring out.
Exactly. Let's say in an organization, 80% of your inbound marketing driven opportunities are net new logos, not uncommon. And you have multiple SKUs, you're launching new things. And for those 80% net new logos, first time business, the first touch of those accounts is probably 2 to 4 years prior. People dipping a toe in the water on something you said at a conference or a presentation or something interesting, something open source. So you're pushing on that towards accounts that matter to you right now. Call it ABM if you want. How are you measuring success when finance doles out a budget for your marketing OpEx quarterly? And you know that this is going to turn into something 2 to 4 years from now. Where in tech, traditionally 2 to 4 years, you're looking at headcount turnover within marketing, who owns what, and 4 years from now, who's there remembering somehow to show that, hey, that worked. And nobody's going to wait for that. The AI coming into play now and things that are being done now are looking at projected revenue maturation across, say, a 4-year window. Is what I'm doing, applying things. If you look at Alembic Technologies is a great example. They're applying healthcare supercompute and covariate analysis to business analytics. It's not a one channel, how's my Facebook doing? How's my banner ad? How's my direct mail piece doing? It's how do I take all these things together and realize that this event that occurred across these accounts correlated with this attendance in this particular webinar, which correlated with this motion that predicts it will mature revenue output of X amount of dollars over the next 4 years. The tricky part there is trust. And I think that's what you're gonna, the big roadblock with AI and big data and the delivery is, how do we make it special and relevant such that we're not just leveraging it for a neat feature and a canned reporting or dashboard view that is always looking backwards? How do I go to a leader who has too much time to look at a dashboard, tell them the two most important things they should be aware of right now, and have them trust what I'm telling them, especially when you're talking about projecting revenue over the next 4 years. Yeah, it's talking 4 years.
Yeah, that the whole attribution thing's tricky. Like you said, the sale is far out to begin with, and then knowing, do you give different, weighting for like first touch versus second touch or
See,
last
the waiting and the first touch and last, they're almost
and
bad words at this
and the
point.
pass?
Yeah, it's everybody wants to see the visitor journeys, the account journeys. When you're of a certain size, the deck comprising all those journeys is tremendous. But if you took all of that and put it together on historics and then built that into a propensity model and then use that to actually project an expected outcome from those, that's the sweet spot. I've had people before, those really nice slides that people take a bunch of time on, anatomy of a deal slides. For sales, it usually starts with the meeting, right? And they never include all the marketing activity that might happen before that. So then the marketers come in and they tack on, here's everything that happened before that. They're pretty, but if you think about the amount of legwork that went into putting that together, and then a leader says, I want to see this for all our accounts. Okay, we could do that. And then when I deliver this 1,000-page PowerPoint to you, what are you going to do with it? How are you actually actioning on that? And how far into your next execution phase are you before you have an aha moment? And is that aha moment at that point completely dated? That's marketing pre-AI.
All right. So we have 4 questions that have already shown up. So one of them is, how are you doing causal AI?
Causal AI right now is predominantly through a partnership with Alembic. Alembic are the only people right now doing what they refer to as composite AI. The best way to describe it is, if you take any healthcare analysis, let's say, I didn't want to bring up COVID. It's such a negative, dark period, but if I had 500 patients with COVID and I have 20 covariates I'm analyzing across all of them, and then I take those 20 covariates and then I basically look at time to mortality, and my time to mortality is going to vary based on this mix of covariates. If you take a positive spin and say, well, I've got big data, first party, third party, billions of rows of data when you actually get it together in a proper CDP. If you apply that covariate analysis towards those business actions, you're basically doing the same thing, but instead of time to mortality, you're looking at time to revenue in that standpoint. Now, it has been said, if you come back and say, we're projecting this much revenue is going to come from this thing, the internal speak might be, we know that, that's why we do it. The beauty would be flipping it. If you're saying you're doing these awareness programs that aren't traditionally measurable in the past, that are to eventually drive some sort of revenue, but you're not projecting any revenue maturation or very little from it, from that modeling, that's where the sweet spot comes into play, where you tell the leader, we need to tweak this.
Very good. And then there's some other questions about reporting, and that I'll get to with a future segment. If anybody wants to chime in on why they answered that last poll the way they did, you can. Otherwise, we'll go on to the next poll. Okay, and actually, if you want to raise your hand, whatever, I can do that too. So let me go to the next poll.
Okay, we got to get a poll on this hat, Bob. What I think.
What's that?
We got to get a poll going on this hat.
Yeah,
25 hat.
All right. Let's see. Poll for the hat. Okay, so people like it, don't like it. Okay, so here's the next. Let's see back. Okay, ended. Stop sharing. Okay, and then launch the second one. Okay, here you see the second one now. So now AI is coming into the mix. So we've had ABM for 20, 30 years. AI is it's throwing some gasoline on the fire and adding more capabilities and such. So how does AI blend in with ABM in your world, Ari?
Yeah, I obviously I would say very comfortable personally from the poll.
Yeah.
The We're in an interesting moment, right? Where when it comes to revenue technology that's out in the marketplace, everybody's rushing, just like each wave, as I was mentioning, of new technology that's come out, to slap it into their offering and then say, yeah, we're AI fuel, we're AI driven. We've got this Gen AI capability in our platform. And everybody at this point in time should be tasked with how am I leveraging AI to be better at what I do, free myself up from the mundane, get a head start from my competition. Where where I get worried moving forward, especially speaking to account-based selling, account-based marketing with that selling, is making sure that the AI solutions take a holistic approach in the organization's data for the good of those account journeys, if you want to call it that. If you take, for instance, there's a lot of AI solutions that help us as individuals, great Gen AI content writing and the like. If you take the journey of anybody from a buying center in an account, from the paid advertising that's occurring, and that those people are hopefully doing ABC testing. They get into our website where we have seconds to capture and keep their attention. That individual's doing ABC testing. They convert or happen to be in our database and we're sending them communications. I'm ABC testing. They come into an automated sales sequence that has ABC testing against messaging and whatnot. Every one of those solutions in that microcosm of all the platforms that are being engaged with has a technology vendor out there with an AI solution that is doing recommenders and telling you what the, if you wanted to simplify it, the winning variant is for each of those steps. And best example would be the website. I have a 50-50 slice, let's say, no, just say one image. I got an image and the web individual, is deciding which of these are converting better. I go with this because it says I get a 30% increase in click-through rate, not knowing that the losing variant was the one that most of my pipeline driving was occurring through. When you think about that whole chain of events, the winning variant for the journey as a whole is probably different based on the account's industry, based on the individual, based on the product interest. And it's not win, 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 win all the way down. It's probably something like win, loss, loss, versus what each individual's solution is telling them. So from a big data perspective, I'm very, very excited about the application of AI. From a Gen AI perspective, I'm very excited about it. I think the win is really plugging it all together, which I think traditionally we as marketers haven't done. The website's a great example. There's been times in the past where I've been trying to figure out how to tag everything and associate it in some way with pipeline or meeting making or what have you for your ROI analysis, to know that I'm not choosing the variant that's being clicked on by students versus buying committee members.
Okay. Very good. Let me end the poll, share results. So we've got some generally comfortable people, no resistance.
I'm surprised there's not a single resistant. You'd think there'd be a naysayer.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's still so early with AI.
Yeah.
And then the AI, the chunks you mentioned, so there's conversational, and then you've also mentioned in the past agentic AI. So which is kind of separate from this discussion, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a customer interaction sort of thing.
Yeah, or RPA was an early foray pre-AI in that space. How can I free myself up in some ways to focus on other things versus the repetitive? Because knowing that most of these agents are going to do a much better job than we as humans in many ways will do on that. The resistance or the uncomfortableness, I think for some people comes into, are we still injecting differentiation into what we're doing? You know, the logo test, for example, if you've got 20 competitors in the same space selling the same widget and you take their logo off the website and the branding off their website coloring, are you differentiating and how amongst those? So if all those people end up going into ChatGPT and saying, I want to sell this wrench, please help me write a product brief on this wrench that makes it sound really, really cool to everybody. Is there differentiation occurring? Is there still soul in there as far as the marketer trying to say why this is better than the competitor when you're all using the same tool?
Interesting. So Will asked, how can we see how Ari's AI platform shows him these predictions? I guess, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So there's two avenues basically right now. One, that partnership with Alembic I mentioned, we're about to launch
And
intelligent
how do you spell that?
ALE, M as in Mary, B as in boy, IC. There are intelligence reports that we're trying to get right, and we haven't nailed it at this point. We're in this weird, I would say, mix where we're doing amazing things with propensity modeling and trying to get that plugged into where people currently operate without them having to learn something new, right? That's the win. How can I get a seller to start their day enabled versus just looking at their inbox, hoping somebody emailed them, but not have them have to learn what propensity means, not have them have to go into a new platform, add another dashboard to their view to get their day started. The intelligence briefings that we're trying to get right is what level of detail is right for a leader? How do we instill trust in them that these are the 2 or 3 things that are most important right now to execute on, and get that right moving forward? For the leaders, for the boots on the ground, it's a daily thing. I want to know exactly what I need to be aware of right now. I'm probably going to socialize that if I need to, if there's some red alert. For the leaders, the roll up is more on a monthly cadence, unless somebody's very plugged in and wants that thing weekly. There's no time for more than that.
Okay. Matt asked, and if anybody wants to ask their questions live, raise your hand or something like that. How does AI at various points in your prospect buyer journey influence your budgets between first and third party? So, are you using this information to help figure out where you should spend your money?
Absolutely. And we've done that before, with the rise of intent data, for instance. So when we're trying to put together some sort of quality metric in play in your delivery. There are tricks, right, you can do with pixels. Say there's pixels out there that identify companies. You match the company, it's telling you whether they show up in these particular segments or they're this or they're that. And you have a vendor touting that they have a destination which is getting high traffic from very quality in-market accounts. Pay us this money and we'll start delivering to you. And you have the conversation. They allow you to put your pixel on their website and you look at what the identified traffic is and you realize it's garbage coming in. That drives the decision making in that case. With AI, for anybody coming in, again, if you're projecting revenue over the next 4 years, or you're projecting how quality these accounts are coming in from your propensity modeling, that's going to determine whether I'm going to keep going with, say, this delivery mechanism, this channel, this arm or not. Where it gets a little muddier, I would say, are the early awareness brand plays. Traditionally in the past, a marketer could say, well, my job is to put billboards on the freeway, and you can't really measure that. So I make really awesome billboards. Now, with the correlations analysis in play, we could say, well, okay, we know these billboards went up at this particular time. They're related to this topic, this product, what have you. And we can see what that spillover effect is, that correlations from that, and then look at causality for projected revenue maturation. The trick is, just like the early days of personalization, not creating the spaghetti monster mess. We're not throwing spaghetti at the wall. We're trying to, which you could do, right? Personalization is a great example. You personalize right down to, gosh, I wonder if they like this color or that color. or do different colors by roles, different colors by account industries, and how are you measuring success at that point when you've come up with 100 variants? With AI, you have the ability to actually do a better job of tracking all that, but at the same time, we as marketers have to police what we're doing, and make sure that it's not just, again, spaghetti thrown at the wall.
Very good. I'm gonna go ahead and launch the next poll. So data-driven decision making. How confident are you to be able to translate data insights and actionable strategies for lead generation? I think you've got a pet peeve with the data-driven people say data-driven a lot, too much, maybe.
Yeah, I'm data driven. I'm very data. It's kind of one of those buzzwords now, right? You look up, okay, what skills are listed for this job rec? I want to make sure that's on my resume. Okay, data driven, got it. I'm data driven. Okay, quantify, your most recent results. How were you looking at that? The other pet peeve for mine here would probably be lead gen, in this account-based world. The and what is success in lead gen and how is it measured? We're in this weird world where I always thought that if I started in a new company, fresh ground up, I would have a revenue orchestration platform. We would do focus on the account and the buying center only. MQL would be a dirty word. It wouldn't exist. I've never had that opportunity. Every org out there is still lead gen focused, probably has the Dungeons and Dragons style scoring for what leads should level up and which leads shouldn't. And each of those leads are a singular individual from these accounts. As you get into mid-market and enterprise, that one lead is not a good representation on average of the account's relationship with you holistically. So where data-driven and AI come into play is, how do I look at that holistic action for that account? Actually, turn on the self view. Basically, because I'm much better. I think on LinkedIn, right after the COVID lockdown ended, I posted how much I'd missed my favorite coworker, and it was the whiteboard. And this isn't anything novel, but it's much easier to understand in this method. Yeah. So if I have an account and I have, let's say, enterprise account, mid-market account on up, even a small account, an SMB, it's very rare that there's one individual, right? We're not selling apples to an individual grocery shopping for dinner, right? There's a water cooler conversation taking place. And depending on how your organization is structured, you're going to have let's call it a community. You're going to have marketing programs. You're going to have sellers. And then you've got partner channel events, on and on and on and on and on. These individuals, you're probably breaking up by buying center roles. And then these buying center roles are all individually, maybe that's a veto, maybe you got lucky. At the most simplistic level, magnify that exponentially. If you look at your activity history within whatever you're using, Marketo, anything. So when we talk lead gen and the marketer is say, oh my gosh, I got like this really great title here. So we're going to auto MQL them. We're going to send them over to the seller. And this individual has no water cooler conversation. There's only one individual from this account actually engaging, not a buying center. We kick it over to sales, and sales once again hates marketing. And so we have this very interesting realm right now where there are great tools coming about, account journey things being baked into, say, your Marketos and your HubSpots and that traditionally are lead management platforms that are being managed by marketers, not involving the sales individuals. Again, going back to that, the success being the holistic view, that application end to end has to be executed end to end as well. There was an early implementation of a revenue orchestration product where we were having issues with adoption. And we were having weekly meetings, like, how do we get more sellers on this? How do we get more sellers on this? And then it was somebody in the team that chimed in and said, well, there's no sellers in these weekly meetings, which is more often the case with the tech that marketers are coming and saying, this is going to be great. This is our new ABM.
Yeah. So were you saying that the sales and going back to sales and marketing and getting them on the same page and everything? I think I heard you say once that the ABM is like the shoe with the eyelets. And
Yes.
how do you fit your role in that scenario?
I'm the laces. Or as my kids keep trying to encourage me to get the Velcro. They love the little Velcro shoes.
I like Velcro.
Seems much easier. In a perfect world, they'd be what do you call them? Loafers, right? I hope the day I die, there is no delineation between a sales versus a marketing budget. When you talk about engaging an account and that view with everything going on in that account, why should I have separate marketing programs and separate sales programs? Then have some poor soul come in and talk about how we're going to achieve success in alignment.
Yeah.
With the technology we have, here's a great example. We've had this ability for years, AI aside, to have an inbound Gmail address, and SDR, BDR talks to that individuals, identifies that they're a fortune company we're trying to go after. They're looking at this particular offering that we have, and they're evaluating these competitors, and they're in this industry. All this information, all this goodness that you wouldn't get enriched because they were just some random Gmail address in your database. And we have the ability to actually create a drop down in the seller's view that after they hang up that phone, they click it and it triggers automated digital experiences across all the very important individuals in our contact coverage for that account. So who owns the budget for that execution? In most orgs, they can't get to that point because of the budget.
Yeah, and often that the marketing has the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably, like you said, marketing, I think either should report to sales, or at least that coordination.
Yeah.
I'll put up the poll, and then and Shonadeep, I don't know if you want to share your question live, but let me go ahead and put the poll answer. So another confident group, pretty confident on their data-driven decision making.
I don't see the poll results. Did you put them up?
Oh, sorry about that. How about this?
Might be. Oh, there we go. Yep. See, I would, without offending anybody out in the world, I think most of us I'm not even sure. I would say I'm very confident. I think where the confidence drops is in getting the execution from those actionable insights in place. And as you try and align those individuals to execute on those actionable insights, time is ever moving forward. And the actionable insight is from data that is getting older and older and older. And so with AI in play, the beauty would be at some point that the organization's aligned around these actionable insights, these intelligence briefings that are coming out at that moment in time, so that we're executing in real time versus looking at a dashboard of the past.
Okay. So Shonadeep, do you want to, I can make you live here if you want. Let's see.
So you need an AI solution where you just say the name and
Here we
live,
go.
and there it goes.
Here we go. Promote the panelists. The top. Okay. So Shonadeep, are you able to talk? Sure. Go ahead. think there's a delay. Let's see.
Bob, can you hear me?
Here we go.
There you go.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Ari, nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you. Is that a real background? It's a
It's real.
fascinating, clean, and cool looking. Looks like a canned virtual background.
No, it's real. It's real.
Awesome.
So hey, no, hey, Ari, very, very interesting, and especially love what you talked about around multi-touch attribution, all that out the window, and that really needs to be better ways to show our impact. The question I had is, we're pretty far along in terms of onboarding generative AI, mainly in sort of the text space around how we're reaching and doing hyper-personalized engagement, say blending a company strategy with our strategy and making very specific emails that are very targeted. However, I haven't found anything yet that truly automates it all, meaning it goes and searches and says, okay, I give them an account list that me and the salespeople have agreed to, and the people and the ecosystem of players, and then it actually goes in and makes those, does the research, connects it, and then of course pulls in the right assets, and then actually deploys it and optimizes it. And I know that's the holy grail, but I don't know if you've found in your world.
Not there yet. I've seen some people come close where there are, call them data dictionaries that they're putting together, and then there's a Slack interface or something to it so that the sellers can speak to the account and add in whatever other detail they want, and the automation delivery for that communication comes out from it. I haven't seen it in a vendor solution that pulls it in end to end. At that point, you're getting into the realm of agentic AI, right? And it's like, okay, so why do I need the human in the mix? Which is a very tricky conversation to navigate. I think everybody's working towards that. I haven't seen a good representation of that end to end. I think we're close. I think within a year's time, you'll have some solutions probably at the latest, greatest conferences on the expo show floor saying, here are your new seller agents.
Yeah, awesome. I hope that does come true. And that I know our companies work closely together on the digital infrastructure side. So look forward to
it's
that.
tricky though, right? You've got, for all the automated sales cadence outreaches, we've always had tokenizing,
Yes.
where you could actually put in dynamic content within everything. And even that to execute has been hard because of the human involvement in the mix and the adoption and trust and everything there. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the course of the next year, I'd say.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. All right. So Will's gonna be joining us with his question. I think it's a little bit of a delay, so sorry about that.
Got it.
It's in, getting in there. Unmute.
Hey, Bob.
All right. Hey, Will.
Hey, Ari.
I
Thanks
will.
again. Pleasure to meet you too. Appreciate your perspective, insight, and experience you've been sharing with us. Yeah, what Sean O'Deep, I think his name was, just shared around stitching it all together with an AI was really intriguing right there, because I feel like the tactical execution, the personalization seems to always be the heavy lift of really resonating with your target persona, meeting people at their needs and exceeding their expectations in the moment that you're engaging with them seems to be the winning formula. And it's a hard formula to get right. And AI has a lot of promise in that endeavor. So that's the qualitative piece that I call, in my mind, qualitative. The quantitative is the stitching together the tech stack and activating the tech stack to do what you want it to do. One of the questions I had, Ari, was at this point in time with the technology we have, can you help marketers and teams understand what it takes to target a market and what the time horizon is to generate marketing qualified accounts to sales, meaningfully engaged accounts to sales?
Yeah. It's going to vary based on every business, right? And what your particular model and your particular offering is. Is it new endeavor, new logo, first time product, or is it an add-on to an organization? We I've had people in these settings before saying, well, this is all great, but you don't need to be doing what you're doing because you're NVIDIA. But we pivot all the time with new offerings that nobody's ever heard of. And those new offerings might not even be something that people realize they probably want. And that goes back to the,
Right.
okay, if it's announced at one of our conferences, we're looking at, maybe a 2-year more ramp up to actual, ongoing revenue occurring from that. So at what point in time do I consider it an MQA that the seller is going to be interested in, who's currently tasked with selling product on truck as much as possible, with the phone ringing off the hook? That is a tricky conundrum that we run into all the time. That's where the attribution info we talked about before, projecting revenue maturation over X amount of time, comes into play. But the actual execution piece, okay, when do I identify something as an MQA for sellers to talk to for this? And are my sellers properly structured and aware that they should be trying to push this right now? Especially if it's an add-on that's, say, more focused on a subscription-based ARR versus a very high dollar amount hardware solution that's going out the door. For us, it's still the same. There is as much as I've always wanted to get away from it, there is the lead aspect. Am I nurturing the right people from the right accounts on this information? And at what point to identify it as an MQA? For us, MQA is going to be based on both the propensity model that we have in play. We're plugging in first and third party data. Now, again, if it's a net new offering, there's going to be a bit of a muddy mix because you don't have historics related to that particular offering. But if it has a sibling or something similar, then you can kind of guesstimate from that. And then, does it require a buying group? Is it something that one individual from an account would come in with their credit card and buy? Then sure, there's your MQA. All things matching, checking off the checklist for that particular lead or person. But if it's something that is OpEx impacting and requires that water cooler conversation internally, the MQA identification is going to be based on, did I identify, say, 75% of the buying group actually engaging right now? The tricky part is the definition of engagement, right? It's can't be form-based because executives aren't, as much as we'd like them to be, all over the website spending hours self-researching and filling out forms. You do have your activity logs in most of your marketing automation platforms to dive deep into, and that's where something like a CDP comes into play to pull all that out and analyze those people in the mix. But it really comes down to, okay, I had 100 accounts engaging on this new offering that I have. How many of them have more than one individual engaging? Dumpster dive the data, make sure it's not garbage. Case in point, you'll find, say, in many databases, your practitioner level boots on the ground is almost the same pattern as your C-level executives somehow. And it just turns out it's either lazy form filling or people that want to identify themselves on every form as the CEO of Microsoft. So, no matter what application we have in play, AI solution, I find data dumpster diving just doesn't go away. But again, the MQAs are going to be based on looking at that pool of people or in that period of time and trying to figure out, how am I identifying garbage from the non-garbage. Early on, it'll just be, how do I know which of these are real people that could be ready for a sales conversation versus people that I know are going to tick off sales if I hand them over at this point in time.
Yeah, keeping that trust. I think it all goes to, my question revolved around creating a demand in the market. And I'm assuming that you use the example of how brand influences creating demand in the market, the propensity for someone to accept or to engage with your marketing communications, your advertising, whatever it ends up being. Does that propensity increase if you have a higher brand spend activity against targeted accounts versus general persona activity, brand activity? Those are the kinds of things that I think would be super helpful for marketers, right? To be able to then say, well, we do need brand to help support demand. We've always known that we need brand, but now there's direct correlated data to support that.
Right. And to use these tools to actually have that conversation with finance at the end of a quarter to go and say,
Yep.
hey, you know, that $10,000 you gave me, we can definitively say with even with 60% degree of confidence, I would say we're at the point with some of these solutions where you're in the 80% realm, but say 60%. If I could 60% confident say that the $10,000 we spent on these brand plays is going to do X, Y, and Z for us as a company. And if you give me $5,000 more dollars, I know with this 60% confidence, we're going to get this increase in output. It's a great conversation because to date, finance kind of looks at that OpEx from marketing as the fireplace money, unfortunately, in many cases. Like, oh, here's your cute money to go play with, go do your brand thing.
Yeah, the reps will tell you we need better brand awareness.
Yeah.
We need people to have a perceived notion of who we are when we call into them.
Right.
So appreciate all you're doing in this regard.
We've gone through this with low tech in the past, where in an organization that was fantastic, hyper growth startup, fighting the big dogs that were household names, and your sellers are reaching out to people who don't know what the logo is.
Right.
Ian Howells, CMO of Intact and Sage Intact post acquisition, is the organization I worked into, always touted robotic positioning and being the whale in the small pond. You know, how do we truly differentiate? And in that organization, it's not enough to differ by industry and say, oh, we have nonprofits. Here's my nonprofits page. Here's my page for faith-based diocesan fiscal leaders. And all of a sudden, these accounts, it's resonating because they go, okay, I evaluated you against the two household names. They've got nonprofit pages, but you're the only one speaking to exactly who I am right now, even if it's just text on the page, right? We have a habit of going engaging creative, and creative says, I'll get you new content for that in a year. Just go on the page and speak to who the individuals are, hyper relevant that you're trying to target, so it resonates.
That's what I would call the exceeding my expectations in that moment.
Yeah,
right. That's
exactly.
To me the winning.
It's going to stick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. All right, so I'll go to the fourth survey question. So reporting. So traditional dashboards versus the AI influenced dashboards. So how is AI changing the world of reporting?
I love this poll because traditional dashboards are almost a knee-jerk process-driven thing for marketers and sellers, right? No matter what I'm doing, I need a dashboard. We got this new campaign. I need a dashboard. I need a dashboard. And traditionally, what I'll do is ask the team to create me a dashboard that shows usage metrics of all the dashboards. And you will find that even the people requesting them hardly ever use them. They might take screenshots and try and speak to them when there's a reporting necessity. Again, part of it is because they asked for the kitchen sink in a view versus actionable insights, a 10-page scrolling document of every metric known to man, instead of really thinking, okay, what are my true KPIs for this motion? And knowing that when I'm looking at that dashboard, I'm looking at the past. And if I could hyper execute on the recent past right now so that my next week's execution changed as it needed to change, that'd be amazing. I don't think most people are operating that way. The AI-powered insights and recommendation engines are where you start your day and are being told, okay, the whole ecosystem's great. We've got the dashboard if you want to look at the ecosystem, but these are the three things you need to be aware of right now. This is broken, fix this, and do more of this. That's going to be the sweet spot moving forward.
And based on the poll, I think everybody agrees with you.
That's good to hear. This is a great group of people. We need to just disperse and just force people to adopt.
So the key, I think you said, so actionable is kind of a key part of it, right? I mean, if you have results and you can't really do much about it, that's not that helpful.
Right. I mean, it's okay, take any bar chart with meeting metrics. Even if you're tracking the quality of this meeting, okay, we had 20 in this month and 10 in that month and 15 in that month. You're just looking backwards to see where the dart landed versus actually changing how you execute moving forward.
Okay, so we have more questions. So Matt, I'll bring you up. Okay, so we have 10 minutes. We have a hard stop at the top of the hour. So future reporting, get rid of that.
Yeah, funny enough, I have to, the hard stop is I have to go talk about brand reporting.
Okay, so we'll warm you up a little bit for that. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Bob, thanks for including me, and Ari, pleasure to meet you. So some of the questions that I have before, and I love that poll question, Bob, as well, around it's like the dashboards and all these reports, and give me something that I can actually do something with. But Ari, I think a lot of when we're talking the ABM strategies, and not just on the customer acquisition piece, but more so on existing customers, how is it that you are trying to overcome data deprecation when it comes to changes in the buying committee, changes with folks that are moving on to new organizations that were your previous champions? So how is it that your team is currently kind of overcoming those challenges?
You know, that is a constant battle. So there are vendors out there that will try and enrich or let you know when those contacts have actually switched roles and dynamically engage that information. I haven't got to the point where it's a household name lever just yet. A lot of it is spelunking. A lot of it will be activity based too. So if I have a contact coverage for a particular account and I've got a profile map, and we're looking at offering an expansion or an add-on of some kind that's ripe for our install base, we pull up that contact coverage and see what the activity is for those individuals. If they've moved on, there's not going to be much activity unless they're still, engaging as those people are filling out old form data or some such. The activity metrics is what really comes into play. And then going back to that engagement definition, it's even when you're running those marketing campaigns to push those add-ons for the install base, the activity is going to be based on that holistic view of what's happening with the account. So it could be sales conversations. If I know there are individuals in there that had a certain amount of activity over X amount of time, and then they've been dormant for this much time, and they're a customer, that's a little weird and a bit of a red flag for those individuals. It's not perfect. It doesn't tell me, okay, we've identified them on LinkedIn, they're at this new role, this new company. But we go through that motion for data hygiene routinely, where do you really need 10 years worth of person records in your database? If the best example that was brought to me, somebody that's a student in your database, and you've got a big learning and development outreach towards students. This person's a student in your database. They've been a student in your database at University of Arizona for the decade. They're either the worst student at University of Arizona, or that is a very old, irrelevant person record at this point in time. The same goes for the buying group information, what's happening with these individuals. I don't have a solid solution that I can tout as of yet, aside from data dumpster diving, continually trying to fight it and stitch.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt. So I'm going to go to the final poll. We've got 5 minutes.
I don't know why I picked University of Arizona being a Bruin, but oh well.
Okay, so propensity modeling. So Ari, so propensity toward what? What's the?
So I can tell you my team shot themselves in their foot initial foray into propensity modeling by referring to it as propensity to buy. And my team's name is revenue marketing. And so people would often say, you have to understand we do more here than generate revenue. Well, it's not true. The janitorial in the building impacts morale, which impacts productivity, which impacts at some point in time, in some way, revenue. So the propensity modeling is really propensity to anything. How are we moving from antiquated, as I mentioned earlier, Dungeons and Dragons scoring around, hey, if you read this ebook, you get this many points. If you attend this event, you get this many points. If you're Bob, you get a 50-point bump. We'll auto MQL Bob, even though, Bob's not interested in purchasing at the moment. Propensity modeling is propensity to buy, propensity to engage. Propensity to engage is where it gets really beautiful. When I look at the account relationship, that's really where I'm trying to drive everybody as a singular starting point. Because every one of those individuals, propensity to engage with the developer community, with our marketing campaigns, propensity to buy from our sellers. Every one of those individuals has their varying KPIs. So no two reports will match at that person level internally, but they're all targeting the same account. And I want to know from that account what their propensity to engage is and what their top products they're interested in, what their top use cases are. That's where that application of AI and propensity modeling becomes beautiful. It's not just to identify the buying groups and who has the highest propensity to buy, which is great, who has the highest propensity to engage, to funnel them and accelerate them towards that P2B state.
Okay, so one other thing that I always forget about. So ABM, so there's two use cases, right? There's one for new logos and one for existing logos and trying to expand it. So what have you been mostly speaking about? Or where's your focus at?
So because we try and grab as much data as possible for the good of the organization, we have motions happening in both ways, towards the install base and towards net new. It's a constant.
Poll results. Lots of interest in propensity modeling. No resistance.
It's interesting for a general account manager, not named, they might have as many as 500 to 600 accounts in their patch. And this is speaking again to that alignment barrier. You could have the most amazing intent-driven propensity model where you're saying, hey, you're 500 to 600 accounts. These 5 right now are fully engaging. They have a fully active buying center. You should be going after them right now. As a marketer delivering that cold to your sellers, you'd be surprised how often you're brushed aside. And you ask them, well, how are you starting your day? Then I know you're starting your day by looking at your inbox. How would you like to start your day with this intelligence brief on who to reach out to right now? It's a constant reminder that as marketers, we have to keep flexing that politician muscle, to bite your tongue, and for the people in the organization that you want to adopt the latest, greatest thing, they have to be brought in at the foundation level at the start, even if they don't understand it, just so that they feel like they had a vested interest in making this thing happen and they want it to be successful. And that has been the bane of adoption and technology to date. People, separate budgets, buying a technology, a revenue orchestration platform bought by marketing, trying to implement it over in sales, and people say, leave me alone. I got enough going on.
All right. Well, we're at the last minute and a half. So thank you very much. So one last question we'll ask, and maybe you can combine it. So I always like to ask, where how do you see things going in the future? Will was asking, what are the evolving skill sets to be an ABM marketer with so forth. So if you can kind of combine that, maybe.
Well, embracing AI technology, obviously, is the huge one. The other aspect I think we missed during the conversation is just the foundation of what makes a great B2B seller and marketer. I think just like any tech we've had in the past, people run the risk of just buying the tech and thinking it does things for them, and therefore marketing solved, therefore selling solved. At the foundational level, if somebody asked me recently, your new hires, what's the first book you'd like them to read? And it's always Crossing the Chasm. And they makes fun like, oh, that's so old. And I say, it's not, it's the foundation for what you are at your core for go-to-market moving forward. Everything else is goodness. It enables us, speeds us up, better data. But as a marketer, if we lose that foundation, you just throw in OpEx into a junk bin and hoping it's doing great things. It looks nice. There's shiny objects, but you can't forget who you are and constantly work on what modern B2B marketing and selling really is at its foundation.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you very much, audience. Thank you very much. Great participation. Any final words? Otherwise, we're
My final word is I'm getting kicked out of the
the
conference.
next meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bob. It's a fantastic chat.
Pleasure. Thank
All
you,
right.
Art.
Bye.
Thank you all.